Hello, and welcome to the Techpedition Podcast for Sunday, January 14th, 2018, Season 3. How's it going, bro?
Going good, man. Going good. How about yourself, dude?
Pretty good. Finally got my new rig built, so...
yeah, man. You turn those things around quick, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of a RGB orgy, because, like, my case has a LED strip where I can change the colors, and then this motherboard that I bought, it has like all kinds of LEDs on it, and there's some software. It's the Gigabyte Aorus Gaming 5 Z370 board, and it's got software where you can change the color of all the lights. Like, so I can, like, right now what I have is the case is blue, and then I have all of the LEDs on the motherboard yellow. So,
well, you could change each light individually?
Yeah, you can actually, in the software, all the lights on the motherboard, the areas, you can select specific areas and change those to whatever color you want, which I thought was pretty crazy.
That's
I haven't done anything like that, though. They're just all yellow right now. And I'm exploring the water cooling for the first time. I have a 240 millimeter radiator hooked up to an Arctic freezer all-in-one water cooler.
Cool.
I mean, it's pretty good.
So was that difficult to get up and running, or?
It actually wasn't. It wasn't difficult at all. I mean, it really wasn't any different than installing an air cooler. You just put the back plate on and screw it on there, and you just had to mount the radiator in a place to where, you know, the actual tubes are a certain length, so you have to kind of think about where you want to mount the radiator. But I was able to mount mine at the front of the case. So
now, does it come pre-filled with water, or that's something you add the coolant, or how does that work?
It's pre-filled, and from what I understand, it's a non-conductive solution. But the issue comes with these when they run, like, well, I don't think you ever have to replace the fluid in these. I think they're good for about 2 or 3 years, and then you probably need to buy another one. Because, like, after a while, like, the deposits from the radiator start, you get deposits and stuff from the aluminum, or I'm pretty sure it's aluminum, the aluminum radiator. And so eventually the liquid will become conductive. So, you know, like if you had your own custom loop, you would just normally every year drain it and refill it. But with this, it'd just probably be easier just to buy another one. It's got my temp is running at about 30 degrees now. And I ran Cinebench earlier, and I think the highest it ever got was 55 degrees. Like, my CPU at 100% was topping out at about 55, 56 degrees, which is pretty amazing. I haven't tried overclocking anything yet, so.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because wasn't that your whole purpose for dropping back down to the i5?
Yeah, it's supposedly you can overclock it to 5 gigahertz, and it runs like a champ. But the reason I haven't is I was just trying to let it burn in for at least 24 hours before I tried to overclock it or anything. So that's kind of probably when we get done with this, I'll start playing around with that.
Cool. Sounds good.
Results next week. So shall we jump into the news?
Let's jump into the news, man.
I guess this is mostly going to be a news like podcast. It's still kind of slow, so we don't have a major topic yet. But
yeah,
we'll just do a news one.
Yeah, we did have CES, but I don't think anything just awesome and world changing came out of CES. I don't think. I think it was mostly the standard stuff, televisions and some auto stuff as well. But I don't think it was anything just fantastic that came out of there.
Yeah. Alrighty then. So first, I feel like we should revisit this because I feel like my explanation in particular was pretty horrible last week when we were talking about Spectre and Meltdown. So I kind of want to do a like base level explanation of like what they are and, you know, why it's such a big deal. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do that. And I mean, you're not alone because I mean, I have to admit, I'm still very confused by it. I think I have the basics, but I would love to hear you break it down just a little bit more.
Okay, I mean, it really boils down to, I guess, if you want to get like super, super technical, it boils down to out of order execution. So the easiest way to think about this from the stuff that I've researched is, let's say you have a recipe. So the recipe is chop up some potatoes, cook them in the second step is cook them, boil them, bring them to a boil. And then the third step is mash the potatoes. And then the fourth step is cook your chicken, for your dinner. And, so if you look at those four steps, you don't necessarily have to do those in order. You can be cooking the chicken while you're chopping the potatoes and while you're melting the butter or whatever. So you can do them in parallel. You don't have to wait until you're done with the potatoes to cook the chicken. You follow me so far?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So basically when you say, oh, so I can cook the chicken while I'm making a potato. So that's kind of like, to break it down, that's kind of what out of order execution is. So your computer does this all the time with computer programs. So you have a set of instructions, and what the computer does is, or your CPU does, is it looks ahead and it sees if there's anything else it can do in parallel. And if it can, it'll do it. And the computer doesn't tell you that it's doing this. It just kind of does it on the fly. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I guess the big takeaway here is all this happens, like it does, like the computer doesn't have direct access to the CPU doesn't do this in your RAM. There's a cache on the CPU where all this stuff is happening. And basically that's the part that comes into play with Spectre in particularly, and with Meltdown. So with Meltdown, basically all you have to do is you trick the CPU into executing code in that forbidden memory space.
Mm-hmm.
And when the computer does that, you can get it to do all kinds of things. We kind of hit it on the head last week when we were talking about like this unprotected part of the memory. Normally what happens is it's walled off, but it's not always walled off. And depending on what's happening, so like, we're talking about the CPU looking ahead, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what happens is with those sets of solutions that if, I said sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Essentially what happens is with the set of instructions where it tries to like look ahead and make things faster, if it doesn't work out, it's just discarded. But if it does work out, it's executed on the CPU. And basically the big flaw in Meltdown was that if it does execute, it doesn't have access to the walled off parts of memory. But if it doesn't, I guess the easiest way to put it is the out of order like solution that it was trying to come up with that it doesn't actually execute, that instruction path, it has access to all of the memory, all of the cache on the CPU. And like that's where the problem comes from. And basically people can manipulate that, or hackers can manipulate that part, that solution that doesn't work, or that wouldn't even be executed, even though like the CPU plays it out, to see if it'll work. They can exploit that to get the CPU to reveal other parts of the memory. So if your Wi-Fi password, for example, or your credit card number is in the memory cache, and this part executes, like it can trick the CPU into like actually you can trick the CPU into interacting with that part of the solution that isn't executed. And like that's where all the problem comes from, because that, like I said, that part isn't walled off. It can see all of the memory, like anything that's in that memory cache. It can see anything there, and there's ways to manipulate it to get information out of it. So that's basically what, in shorthand, that's basically what both of them are. It's just how they do it is where it kind of differs.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I've been hearing various podcasts talk about this, and I think it's something that they've known about for a long, long time, but I guess it was just not practical to do the to execute the vulnerability, I guess.
Yeah, because of speculative execution, which is what all this is. The reason it wasn't seen as a problem because like nobody is supposed to have access to it. It's not visible. You don't know the CPU is doing it. So like nobody really cared. But they found ways, like hackers have found ways to manipulate it. Now with Spectre, it takes advantage of something called the branch history buffer. Because CPUs don't have infinite memory, and they store statistics for every so I guess I need to back up a little bit. Speculative execution also has to do with like if statements, and basically it if you have a whole bunch of if statements that are being executed, instead of because it can't infinitely store them all, it saves some in this thing called a branch history buffer. And basically the way Spectre works is you can pollute that branch history buffer, and you can fool the CPU into speculatively executing code. And if you do this on a VM host, it can see anything that if you do it on a VM, it can see anything on any of the VMs and the VM host that's in memory. It can see all the memory.
Wow.
And that's where that one's super, super hard to pull off, because the if statement has to be in the cache, but the end of the if statement can't be in the cache. It has to be outside of the cache. It's super, super complicated the way it works. But there's not really going to be a quick fix for it, because it's just, it affects everything that uses speculative execution. I'm trying to think. I don't know if ARM processors do speculative execution or not. But I don't know if it affects ARM. But it does affect it. I know it affects AMD and Intel processors. They said it affects everything, but I think there's a few CPUs that it doesn't affect.
Well, I think it does affect all of them. What I'm hearing is in some instances, they don't take advantage of the speculative execution. Like for the Raspberry Pi, no, they don't take advantage of that, so it doesn't affect Raspberry Pis. So I think it just depends on implementation. And I don't know if that's I think it just depends on the implementation of the of the processor.
Okay, yeah. All right. I'm kind of looking at an article on right now, and I'm thinking about Meltdown. So basically, the whole thing about Meltdown is the speculative execution that that has access on the Intel processor. It has access to all of that memory in the cache. AMD CPUs, the reason they're not vulnerable to Meltdown is because it's walled off, whether it's speculative or whether it's actually being executed. It's all walled off from memory, forbidden memory or from the cache. And ARM chips don't speculate, so that's why. Yeah,
I totally meant ARM instead of AMD. I'm sorry, I got them.
So that's why they're not susceptible to Meltdown. But the way Spectre works, they all have this branch history buffer. So that's why they can all be exploited, basically.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, and I know that's probably super, super confusing, but I feel like that's a better explanation. Instead of just talking about memory, I wanted to kind of get into how the CPU interacted with it and why it's such a big deal. I think the Intel thing's already been patched, but I don't know how they're going to patch Spectre. They're just going to have to redesign the CPUs or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, and
that's why. I'm sorry. There's one more thing. That's why they were saying that it was going to be such a big performance hit on Intel processors, is because that speculative execution, it accounts for a lot of the performance gains you see on Intel processors. But it looks like in real world performance, unless you're doing sequential writes, so unless you're writing a disk, I think SSDs have seen a performance hit. And excuse me, there's one other workload that I can't think of right now that's seeing a big performance hit. With games, it doesn't matter so much because you're not really doing a whole lot of speculative execution in games, so it doesn't really affect them that much. But yeah, so I guess that's my explanation.
Yeah, which kind of goes to my point last week is that, they probably were they probably knew it would be an issue somewhere down the road, but I think they may have intentionally looked over it just for the performance gains. And
kick the can down the road.
Yeah, and I think there's something, I want to do some research. Maybe I can bring it back next week and talk about it. But there's something to do with processor IDs with the speculative execution that prevents all this. That's something that Intel implemented, that has been implementing for the last few years. I need to do
Oh, really?
Yeah, I need to do some research, but there's some type of ID that they were putting on this that prevents it, but nobody's taking advantage of it.
Ah, okay,
Yeah, so
cool.
I'll do some research on that and bring it back next week to maybe talk about it a bit more because I don't know the ins and outs to explain it right now. But cool.
Yeah, and one thing I want to maybe I'll link it on Facebook, but like Google on January 3rd, they pretty much started the whole like hurrah over this with their Project Zero blog post. I want to actually post a blog post. I mean, it goes into the whole detail ad nauseum, and it'll tell you more than you would ever want to know about Spectre. And I mean, so if you're just really wanting to get into the meat and potatoes of exactly how it works, that would be a good place to start.
Cool, man.
All right, on to lighter things. So, there's a game out in Japan right now called Detective Pikachu. And basically, it's this human kid and Detective Pikachu that speaks full English. Basically, they go around solving like little mysteries and stuff. And they're currently translating the game. And there was like a huge rumor that like Danny DeVito was going to voice the Pikachu in the game or possibly the movie, but we found out this week that it's not going to be Danny DeVito.
Oh boy.
In the movie, at least, it looks like Ryan Reynolds is going to be voicing Pikachu in Detective Pikachu.
Is this going to be a live action movie or animated?
I think it might be a blend of both. Okay. I honestly have no idea. They haven't released any details. It's supposed to come out next 2019, I think. So
why? I mean, to me, Ryan Reynolds makes it seem like they're trying to do Ted or what's the other freaking Rocket Raccoon and Guardians. Why Ryan Reynolds? I don't. It just.
I hope the whole thing's CG though. I hope it, or better yet, I hope it's like an anime. I hope they don't try to go live action with Pikachu in the real world because it's not going to work. So hopefully it's animated.
That's funny.
The whole thing.
Oh, the main actor Justice Smith is the guy from The Get Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this show though. Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, it's a new video game that's out. Like I said, it's out in Japan right now.
Oh, it's just a video game. Okay.
Yeah, they're localizing it, but next year there's also going to be a movie. So that's where Ryan Reynolds comes in. He's going to be in the movie. I don't know if he's actually in the game or not, but
no Ash.
I just can't picture him voicing Pikachu. But yeah, obviously, or maybe not obviously, Pikachu will not just be saying Pikachu. He will be like talking in this game, which is weird enough.
Yes, Ted, exactly. That's what we're getting.
I just don't know how people are going to react to this because the new Pokemon movie that came out, there's a part in it where like Ash is like they're like really having a rough time.
Wait, Ash is in it.
No, not this. And
okay,
like
gotcha.
they released like an anniversary Pokemon like reimagining of like the original story. And like there's this part with Ash and Pikachu, and like Pikachu's just like him and Ash are going back and forth, and they just kind of like verbalize in a like human voice what Pikachu's thinking. And like a lot of people were like freaking out and pissed off because Pikachu talked. It's like Pikachu doesn't talk; he just says Pikachu, you know. But yeah, so I just will be interested to see how the nerds react to this.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think they're just trying to cop off of these other shows where characters are talking, maybe. But he does talk in a video game. You're saying he does right now. So
yeah,
maybe they'll be
talking in a video game.
So maybe they'll be accepting of it by the time it comes out in the movie if the game is doing okay right now, which sounds like it is if they're making a movie.
Yeah. We'll see.
So man, let's talk a little bit about fingerprint readers / scanners inside the screen. You know, when I first heard this brought up years ago, I guess a few years back, I thought it seemed almost impossible. And it still seems crazy to me that would be possible. But what do you think about the whole
far-fetched?
Yeah. I mean, we just got it working good with the button to where it's fast and acceptable, and you know you're not waiting forever. But man, to be under the screen, it just seems like one of those things that 15, 20 years ago would have been a huge impossibility.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but at CES this past week, they actually had a proof of concept working, and apparently, it has a detection rate that's really, really similar to like the actual scanners that are on phones now, which
Wow.
I don't see how this could work, but I guess it works. It just is, yeah. I'm just speechless on this. Like, I never thought I would see something like this, but I guess if they can detect finger presses, they just need it to be more detailed or something.
So, Kary, what you're saying is that cube thing that in Star Trek Discovery that they place on the screen is not that much of an invisibility. It just it's something that could happen.
Dumb. That was so dumb.
Hey, kind of make if you can have a fingerprint reader on the screen, I can see data transfer by placing something on the screen. That kind of makes sense, right? Instead of sticking it in a port.
Yeah. Yeah, with wireless charging and fingerprint screens, I guess it's not that far fetched, but it just like hit me out of left field. I was expecting her to like stick it in the computer or something, and she just put it on screen. I was like, "What?
No!"
But I guess it worked, and I'll be excited to see if Apple or Samsung put this in their next phone.
Yes,
really interested to see.
So that's what I was going to ask. Who do you think will be the first big player to actually go for the gusto here and put it in their device?
Well, it definitely won't be Apple because Apple just got wireless charging last year. So I don't think it'll be Apple. They're just so slow to adopt new phone technology that it definitely won't be them. I feel like it'll either be Samsung or maybe LG, just because LG's been getting whooped by Samsung. This is something that if they're not looking at this is something that could really set them apart in the next year or two. So it would behoove anybody that's not Samsung or even Samsung. But what I'm saying is if you're not Samsung and you're not leading the market, this is something that can really set you apart. So I would imagine they're all either talking to Synapse or trying to come up with their own technology. Synaptics, excuse me.
Good point. So, man.
But yeah, look, he says it took him 18 months, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is. I can't wait till that comes out. I think that might be the next big thing because I don't know about this whole Face ID thing.
Yeah, I don't like the Face ID thing.
So, don't man, like it. Are you all about your ambiance in your video games? You know, cutting the lights down just right, sitting in front of a computer with your Mountain Dew and gaming. Are you that type of person?
Oh, yeah. I like to have the lights off. Like to have the lights low, you know, yeah. I guess so.
So, Philips Hue, which I think they did this before in some TVs where they had lights that you could put on the back of some TVs, that the TV would the lights would actually change colors according to what's on the television. So, yeah. So I guess they've taken it a step further to allow your Philips Hue, lights that are placed in the room, I guess, to actually change colors with your video game, whatever is on screen. What do you think about this? Does this just sound weird and stupid? Or
I think it's really awesome. I have the Hue, but it's I don't know what you call it. It's not a color. It's just like a regular light, mm-hmm. But it can dim. It doesn't have a chroma attached to it. But this is just one of those smart home things where it's not like a game changer. But if you have the Hue chroma lights already, and or if you're looking into buying a system, it's just one more reason to. Like, just think about when you're watching a movie. You don't normally have the lights on.
Yeah.
So that would be the one thing that I would have to question about this. But if they could match the ambience of the movie, I guess it would make sense.
Yeah, and I saw a few demos that were actually going on at CES. Seems like it's a thing that they had a lot of booths. But yeah, it seems kind of cool because whenever something was changed colors on screen, the lights kind of change as well. So I think it's kind of cool if they can, it's a also add, it's a nice thing just to add to somebody who's already doing the IoT thing. And yeah, I think it's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. So shall we talk about S9?
Yeah, let's do it.
So apparently the specs for the Galaxy S9 leaked. Most of this shouldn't come as a big surprise, I would imagine. It's mostly, I don't really see anything new on here because it doesn't go into any detail about the actual processor specs. It just looks like there won't be a 4K screen, which makes sense to me because you don't need a 4K screen on a phone.
No.
You barely need one on a computer monitor. Like that. I can't see people being upset about that. But let's see. We have super slow-mo, super speed, dual pixel, 12 megapixel camera, quad HD. Does this is like the same stuff as normal. Why did I even post this?
Well, you know, I mean, I think it's still a good point to bring it up because I think as far as it goes now, there is nothing just. It's hard for me to think of what they can do next in phones. I think the on-screen fingerprint reader was a good thing, but what else can they do besides making these devices lighter, smaller, bigger screens? They kind of done everything. Bezel-less design. I mean, until it turns into like a sheet of glass. I mean, I really don't know what they can do hugely that will improve the smartphone. And I know people may have said the same thing like 3 or 4 years ago, but it's going to take something different, something new that we're not really thinking of. And I think it's just become so standard now that from year to year, you're probably not going to see a huge jump. But, you know, if you look 5 years out, you might see some huge improvements, but just year to year, it's all incremental, you know?
Yeah, which begs the question, why do they release these flagships every year? It should be every 2 years. It should, well, in my opinion, it should match the time it takes you to actually freaking pay one of these. You know, it normally takes 2 years, or unless you're leasing, like leases are real popular now. So I guess it's not that big of a deal. But like every year, we don't need a new Galaxy or a new iPhone or we don't need one every year.
But I think normally the normal person is re-upping every 2 years. So, and everybody's not on the same cadence. So, I mean,
well, yeah,
to have something new every year might be okay. But by the same token, you have a lot of people who have to have the new hotness each and every year. So now that I don't understand, unless there's a huge jump in technology. I don't see why people, you know, have to go from the iPhone 6 to the iPhone 7 the next year, and there's no real discernible difference. I mean, unless Apple is slowing it down, I can see why they want to upgrade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this before we move on. Like, what do you think the next great? I mean, we talked about the fingerprint reader. What do you think the next great phone innovation will be? Any clue or?
I can't really think of anything that I just want on a phone. I guess. Well, I don't know. You can do that with some phones. I was gonna say HDMI to TV, but most phones can do that now. Yeah, I can't really. I got nothing. I have no idea what else they can do, like hardware wise. Anyway, like they've pretty much done everything you can do with a cell phone.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Even with you mentioned to TV, with my new TV, I can cast easily without having a third party app. I can cast from my computer, my Surface Book to not my Surface 3 to my TV. And I think I can do it with my phone, even though I haven't tried. I think it has the right capabilities, antennas and stuff to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a whole lot that you can do to improve a smartphone, unfortunately, but I'm sure they'll come up with something.
Oh, yeah. No
Apple
doubt.
always will. So, man,
there's always one more thing.
Yeah. So, are you interested in jumping back into VR? I know you kind of had that small foray into VR, and you kind of didn't really, it didn't really stick with you. All right, do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't really blown away.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So what if I tell you could do it untethered, wirelessly?
That would be awesome. That would help a lot because that cord in the back of the Vibe makes it like feel like it's pulling you down. So wireless is definitely good. So
at CES this year, HTC showed their wireless adapter.
Oh, nice.
And they also showed off the Vive Pro, which I think is just high resolution screen. I'm not really sure what else they added. I think they added earphones to it as well, I believe. But they showed off the Vive Pro, and they showed this wireless adapter, which I think is pretty cool. Before the adapter, I saw some people doing their own like homegrown solutions where like a backpack PC that you put on for. I think this is the more practical solution. Is using Intel's Y-Gig technology, which I'm not quite sure what that is and might need to do a bit of research, but fast wireless. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I think this is something that is needed definitely in VR going forward because cords are bad when you can't see what's going on really. So that's just cool stuff. That's cool stuff. Another thing on the Vive Pro, I think they added another camera. So with the Vive, you can actually see out to the real world with the headset on. So they added, I guess you have 2 cameras now where you can have a camera for each eye, which I think may be a lot better. So, HTC is doing some cool things.
Yeah. And like I noticed you said they're just adding resolution to the Vive Pro, but that to me, that's huge because one of the problems I have with the original Vive is just the resolution is just too low. They definitely need to crank that up, but with that comes the need for a better graphics card. So maybe that's why they didn't shoot too high for resolution in the first go around. But with the new Volta and Ampere NVIDIA cards coming out this year, maybe we'll be able to push it.
Yeah, it's jumping from 2880 16/1600 from 1080/1200. So it's a pretty good jump there.
Oh yeah, pack in those pixels.
Cool beans.
Okay. Staying on the technology vein here. So I know we talked a couple podcasts back or sometime last year. We talked about Intel and AMD teaming up for integrated graphics, and it looks like it has launched. It's called Kaby Lake G, and it's a pretty huge die. I don't know if you clicked through to see that picture, but it's a big honking die. It looks almost like the Epic or the Threadripper CPU. It's huge. I think this is mostly for notebooks, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually come out with a desktop part or an entry-level desktop part. Or I know Intel has those Nooks, like the little small computers. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this because AMD has always destroyed Intel on their integrated graphics. So it's just really cool to see them working together. Yeah, and that's take on NVIDIA, I guess.
Yeah, that what really shocks me. These are competitors in the landscape. Not as far as graphics, but as far as just processors in general. It would seem weird to me that they're partnering together. I guess to take on NVIDIA, but still, what do you think about this partnership?
Well, it's just really interesting, especially with Raja Koduri moving to Intel from AMD. It's just really, really interesting. I don't know the exact details of this, but from what I understand, it's less a collaboration and more Intel just purchasing the parts from AMD and integrating them themselves. But, it's just still a huge, huge, huge deal.
Yeah. Anything that'll make the landscape a little more competitive, I think is good. And this is definitely, a graphics play to try to, give NVIDIA a little more competition, I guess.
Yeah, and it looks like it can be anywhere from 1.5 to 2 times more powerful than a GTX 1050, which is really interesting.
Oh, what? Is that true?
It says it's up to 1.4 times higher performance than the GTX 1050.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Apparently you can do 1080p, 60 frames a second.
Wow.
On certain games anyway. So
nice.
Cool. Yeah, just something interesting to talk about. What else do we have?
Fat Boy.
Oh man, it's just funny. Like this whole story just makes me laugh because I remember us playing LAN Halo with 16 of our friends back in Hattiesburg. We both live there, and it was around the time the Xbox first came out, but they had released the Controller S, and they had half Controller S's and half Duke Fat Boys or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Controller F for fat. And it's like whenever I had to play with the fat controller, I hated it because it was so bad.
Yeah, it really was. Like at the time, it probably didn't seem as bad as a design decision from Microsoft. And the reason I say that is, even though the two examples I'm going to give are smaller than the Duke, but you have the Dreamcast controller, which was pretty big. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as big as the Fat Boy, and you had the N64 controller, which was also pretty big. So at the time, was it horrible? Yes, but I could kind of see what they were going for. Though they, it seems like they did no testing on this because nobody has hands this big.
Exactly. Like I have big hands and it was hard for me to use it. But I think the killer here is that the price is going to be $70.
Well, that's interesting. You think it would be cheaper?
That's like you would think that it would be cheaper, but.
Well, in a sense, in a way, it kind of makes sense though, because if you go to Microsoft Store and do a custom Xbox controller, it's $70 too, I believe. So, because you can get your name engraved, you can get it any color you want to on the Xbox Store. So, in that sense, it kind of makes sense because it's a nostalgia play and it's not the norm controller. But yeah, you would hope that it would be cheaper since I don't know why people would actually be buying this, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be small run because they're not selling 1 million of these.
Yeah, so definitely the nostalgia play, I think.
Yeah, I remember this was Vinny's. He actually preferred the Duke controller to the S.
What?
Oh, I don't know why.
I know why it's 70. It has an OLED screen where the Xbox symbol is in the middle.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes more sense now.
Yeah, so that's probably why it's a bit more expensive. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Do we have anything else? Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention real quick was that Square Enix announced that Final Fantasy 12: The Zodiac Age, the remaster, is coming to PC. So be on the lookout for that. I can't remember when it launches. I think it's sometime next month. So.
Oh yeah, that's you and Todd. Yeah, Todd Peak. Yeah, that's y'all game, dude. I know y'all excited about that.
We got to get Todd back on the cast.
Oh yeah. Maybe we can do a gaming centric cast maybe once a month. So that might be something fun to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, did you get to play the Z Fighter, Dragon Ball Z Fighter beta?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't even download it. I'm slipping.
I downloaded it.
Is it just on the Xbox or is it PC too?
I think it's just the Xbox. I haven't played it, but I did download. So I may jump on some of that a little bit later and test it out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to download it too. Yeah, it's just Xbox. Yeah, I'm going to download that right now. I think it ends Tuesday, so it looks phenomenal though. It's being made by Arc System Works, the people that make the Guilty Gear games that are freaking beautiful.
Yeah. And
it's 3D, but it's cel shaded so well. It looks like a cartoon. It's amazing.
Yeah. It is crazy how they've managed to take it up a level because the Dragon Ball Z games have been pretty popular for a while, and they always sell well, and they somehow managed to take it to another level. So it's going to be interesting to see what they did there.
Yeah. It's cool because I remember the first time after the resurgence of Dragon Ball in America, there were no recent Dragon Ball games, and then DBZ Budokai came out.
Oh yeah.
And I can't even remember what year it was, but it came out for the PS2, and that game was not good, but I loved every minute of it just because it was like a Dragon Ball Z 3D game, and it was awesome. Yeah, because of that.
it was decent. It wasn't great. But, you also had another game that probably wasn't great, but it did okay at the time because of the gimmick, and that was the Wii game. I forgot what the name of it was. But
is that Budokai Tenkaichi?
I think so. And, man, we had some fun playing that on the Wii, just mimicking the moves, even though it's cheesy as it sounds. But having it do a Kamehameha in real life, I think it was pretty fun. We need that in VR, man.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's come out with a VR like Dragon Ball style something.
Shout out to Be It for Power back in the day.
Oh man, I forgot about Be It for Power, the original Quake 3 mod.
Yeah,
that got cease and desist.
That's how we got our Dragon Ball Zs back in the day, folks. Look it up, Be It for Power.
Well, I guess it wasn't really piracy, but Copyright infringement.
Yeah, definitely copyright infringement. Yeah, I was sad the day they got the takedown notice and they put a bunch of generic fighter characters in there. I was like, no.
Oh my God, the site's still up.
Really?
Yeah. Holy crap. goldenhammersoftware.com/bid for power. Holy crap, it's still there.
Wow. Now that is crazy. Golden Hammer Software. Yeah, the generic characters.
And I think they still leaked out the DBZ models so you could still use them, but they just weren't an official release.
Yeah, dude, I was in awe of this back in the day. Quake 3.
This game was so awesome. I'm kind of scared to re-download it because I want it how I remembered it in my head.
Yeah, I think I played it maybe 10 years ago. It wasn't it was okay, but nah.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest thing ever, but it was cool for the time.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, do we have anything else?
I think that's it, man. I think that's it. Shout out to my Whovians out there. If you're into Doctor Who, check out my other podcast called Discussing Who, where we talk about Doctor Who, and we are starting with the 2005 reboot or relaunch going forward, and we just reviewed Rose, the first episode. So if you're into that, check it out, and yeah, we'd love to have you. Check us out over there.
Oh, yeah, and don't forget about the Star Trek Discovery STD podcast. We'll have an episode Monday or Tuesday-ish, and yeah, check us out for that too.
Yeah, awesome sauce.
We'll see you next week.
All right, guys.
Very quick. Very, very quick. Very, very quick. Very, very quick.
I can't beat that. It just smells burnt and dusty.
Hey guys, don't miss an episode of the Techpedition Podcast. For more information, go to techpedition.com/subscribe. TECHPEDITION.com.